had more or less, I think, now filled up the seminar. Pretty good. As you know, when we were able to secure Troy Bashir from Northrop Grumman, that and sort of informed all the different who was sitting on the fence, then that had an effect of sort of getting quite a few others as well. So over the last week or so, actually, a lot of them have come in place, so that's good. So last night or yesterday, Nadia Petersheim from Rheinmetall, so head of space in Rheinmetall, so that's going to be exciting. As best at the most others are the primes in Norway, so Space Norway, Kongsberg, KSAT, as well as Norwegian Space Agency and the Norwegian Intelligence Service, which is sort of the branch in the armed forces that sort of has the responsibility for the space capabilities. Um, so so um, so Arild Saga, he's sort of the one with the money basically there, who's the one who's buying capabilities on behalf of the Norwegian Armed Forces. So that's going to be someone that's interesting to talk to for most, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, also a few German ones. So Hensoldt, also OHB Systems have also indicated that they would like to come and speak, but they haven't sort of confirmed who from them yet. And of course, Rheinmetall. And as I mentioned earlier, the German-Norwegian Chamber of Commerce, they're planning a delegation to the Arctic Space Week. So they will probably have a group of 12 to 15 companies, German companies, joining both at Andøya and at the seminar, and potentially also some of them at Tech Tour.
Are they potential for presenting?
So these are mostly, I think, mature companies. So
Okay.
these are not mainly startup. There might be some startups among them, but these are mainly sort of member companies in the German Norwegian Chamber of Commerce. So these are probably mostly mature companies. Yeah.
Established. Yeah.
Yeah. So the link to Hensoldt and the link to OHB Systems came through them. Yeah. So
Wow.
then pretty much a full day program from 9 till 5.
Yeah,
Yeah,
five.
4 or 5.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm also thinking about I've been sort of I talked to you about um, um, this, but I was thinking about having a debate, sort of a Finnish, Norwegian, Danish, Swedish discussion on, or a panel on sort of the role of the innovation system ecosystem in sort of developing space capabilities. So I was thinking Simon from Norway slash Australia, and someone from IFO, and Tero from Finland, and then have dialogue with some people in Sweden. So it'd be interesting to have sort of Nordic panel discussion. This is just in my thinking so far. Yeah.
But this is again for the seminar.
Well, this is all for the seminar. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
But would is because we sort of worked with a working title for the panel discussion for the tech tour,
Yeah,
that it would be the changing world order. Where do the startups fit in? Doesn't that
yeah.
sort of overlap or?
Yeah, might be. So we might just look at that so we don't sort of do repeat the
Yeah.
same thing. Yeah. So yeah.
But I think it makes sense to maybe have the Nordic angle in regards to
Yeah.
security.
Yeah. So
Uh,
yeah, so that's sort of the status of the seminar. So more or less, yeah, filled up all the slots, I think. So yeah. So it's
And
starting sort of yeah.
Anders, it looks amazing. In
yeah.
terms of the speaker set, how many attendees are you looking to try and, or how many attendees can you get in the room?
So what we target is 80.
Hmm.
um, which including the speakers basically. So it's not really focusing on a very huge crowd.
Mm.
Um, that's at least, yeah, that's what we've been focusing on, sort of around 80. Yeah.
And do you have access to those? I'm just thinking about, can we help promote the seminar
Mhm.
through our networks to
Yeah,
try
sure.
and attract people? And I mean, the obvious one is LinkedIn, but saying, there is limited space subject to approval. But if you're
Yeah,
interested, click here. Whether, you may be a startup, you may be a prime, but if you want to be in the room with the key players of Norway, click here. So I'm very happy to post something on LinkedIn to
yeah.
the community that I've got, if that is actually beneficial. We obviously don't want to overwhelm you. Um,
No, but I think that would be really really good. And we haven't so we're sort of in the process of making that ready now. As we now have sort of a program that really sort of
Mm.
suitable.
Sales tickets.
Yeah, yeah. And so yeah, definitely. And we also made sort of a slide deck with sort of that goes through the different events at Space Week, so I can send you that as well.
mm.
Yeah, do
Later.
that. Yeah.
I mean, if
Yeah,
what would be really useful is if your team can maybe prepare something
yeah,
that I can cut and paste and we can cut and paste
yeah,
into LinkedIn to, because I won't have time to pull something together. But
yeah,
also what I'm thinking is how Gianluigi can promote this in ESA. And
yeah,
again, if because he's always so busy, maybe if we just give him something and say,
Yeah.
get this out to, because I've just got an email from the commercialization gateway at ESA with a whole load of, these are all things going on.
Okay.
yeah,
If we could leverage him, then I mean that's right in the heart of where you want to be
yeah,
visible.
yeah. Very good point. Yeah, no, definitely. We'll put something together that you could sort of just use directly, and also with links to the registration and so on.
Yeah, because we
So
have a registration form made, so that means that we can keep sort of track on how many people who are interested, and then we can sort of send out invitations for those.
yeah, and I also made now a check-in link for full registration for the so
Yeah,
people can go directly to registry. Yeah.
and
But
obviously
there,
if
but there isn't room for more than 80. That's sort of the limit of the,
Yeah, unless we, for at least for the room that we have booked, that's the capacity. Of course, if we see that there's a huge interest, that we might, we'll have a discussion with the hotel if there's options. But for the room that we have booked, it's the capacity, it's 80.
I mean, what could be really interesting here is one, you can basically say we're space limited, so you can control who
Yeah,
you accept to be there,
yeah,
but also we can put in there, and while you're in Bodor,
yeah,
come along to Tech Tour.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
if
Mhm.
we've got people from primes or from the space industry, they may not immediately think, I want to come and see Tech Tour Space, but if
yeah,
they're already in town, they can't get out. So we
yeah,
kind of got a bit of a captured audience to bring them in on the Thursday night and Friday.
yeah, yeah, definitely. So yeah, no, definitely. That's good.
And
Good.
I think in regards to their interest in Tech Tour, I think somehow you should control that so we don't risk them having to pay a delegate fee. And I think this should be sort of a part of this
Yeah.
of your invitation.
Yeah, 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 definitely.
So we can we
Yeah,
we can register them collectively if you gather them.
yeah, yeah,
Mm. And if you're accepting the Mandas, then that means they're probably
Yeah,
good enough to be at Tech Tour because you've
yeah.
already validated that they're going to bring value to the seminar day.
yeah,
Cool.
definitely.
Super.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I had a couple of, I was reaching out to. ISI said they were too busy, but I'm actually talking to the head of missions at ISI in a couple of hours' time. So I'll try and, what I'll do is I'll send him your list of speakers, Anders, and say there's people with money here in Norway, and they're probably one of the only countries that ISI haven't announced a deal with in the last 2 weeks.
Mhm.
So I'll talk to Steve Young and just say, hey, would you like to have anyone in the room, even just from the Nordic team that can be there to talk about the business and strategy. I'm also talking to a guy called Anders Strangstold from Deloitte. So I got bounced around the defense group at Deloitte from the work we're doing in London with them. And I'm now talking to a guy a bit later who's a Deloitte partner for the Nordics, talking about resilience and security. So again, I'll talk to him about the seminar, but shall I send you his link, Anders, and see whether or not he's of any interest to you? Because
Yeah.
he may be useful for Tech Tour, but maybe not as a speaker for the seminar. But he
Yeah.
may just want to be in the room because these are all people he wants to know.
Definitely.
But I'll send you a link so you can see who he is and see whether you guys know him or whether he could be of value to what you're doing on the Thursday on the 11th.
Yeah. Oh, great. Thanks.
Hi, Marius. Long time no see.
Yeah, sure. Sorry about that. We've been it's been necessary to kind of be okay. I can't find the.
It's hard to hear you.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Or is it just me?
Okay. Yeah, well, anyway, nice to see you all.
Nice to see you again. I think you know everyone from last year.
Excuse me?
I think you know everyone from last year. Yes.
Sure, I do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Excellent. Because I was thinking to move on since we now have this amazing list to maybe get a little more specific about who would we want to have for the keynote slots at Tech Tour and where in the program we should fit them. And I'm especially looking at Rheinmetall, Atmos. Christian, have you spoken to them?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think they can make it. I will double check with them. I mean,
Yeah.
there are so many things in parallel ongoing. Yeah.
I can
Um,
imagine.
I mean, when it comes, to the defense angle, Sebastian Klaus, the CEO, would be of particular interest. Yeah. But if we want to have, a more diverse scene, set up on the stage, then I would ask for Marta Oliveira, the COO and co-founder.
I think you can be the judge of that.
Yeah, depending on what we want.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just for your info, Rheinmetall also confirmed that their head of space will talk at the seminar on the day before, on the 11th. So yeah, so she will be in town, and also one from their Nordic. I think the project manager for the activities that they are planning at Andøya also will attend. Yeah.
Because we wanted Rheinmetall to talk about their M&A strategy. And actually, Simon was supposed to contact the person because he knew the person who was responsible for that, but he hasn't gotten back on that.
I think for the Tech Tour, if we're talking about Rheinmetall either being part of a panel or doing a keynote or both, I think the fact that they are, renowned for being, ground, and I don't even know if they do marine, but the fact that they've now done the joint venture
Yeah.
with ICEYE to take them into space, all of these things I think are really interesting, and obviously they're on the front line of seeing the complete geopolitical change and the huge commitment that every country is now making to sovereignty and security. Just very quickly, ICEYE have just announced, I couldn't say it before, but this is not just bordering Russia. The Netherlands have just bought 4 satellites, and the first one's been launched because because the Netherlands wants to be able to monitor its coastline and borders and lands, and they've spent probably 200-300 million to get satellites in space that they control over their land masses, which is incredibly big step change in the market when you think we've got NATO, we've got the EU, but the Netherlands still want to spend on their own space constellation to monitor their borders.
Good for them.
So I think the whole Rheinmetall world order changing perspective as a major prime would be really interesting. And then we've got the M&A piece, and then
Yeah.
we've got the whole move into space with the joint venture with ISI.
But of course, particularly for Tech I think the M&A strategy is interesting, both for the investors in the room, but certainly
Mm,
for the young companies. So there doesn't have to be an overlap of what they're going to speak about at the seminar. I
mm,
think we can have a very focused keynote from them for Tech Tour.
mm.
Agree?
Yeah. Yep.
So who approaches them? Anders, will you do that or?
Yeah, so I already uh, asked when they confirmed that they will speak at the seminar. I also asked if it would be interesting for them to speak at the Tech Tour. So they said that that would be interesting. If so, just a question on timing and logistics. So if they were still, so I told them the relevant timings are either in the evening on the 11th or in the morning of the 12th. Those are the two
I
sort of,
think the morning of the 12th, don't you think
yeah,
it's two
yeah.
presentations in one day might be a little much?
So, but I wanted to sort of talk to you before we sort of format
Yeah, no, let's say
those
the
are,
morning of the 12th.
yeah. So yeah, and that's of course then for Nadia Petersheim, who's well, her title is head of space. Yeah.
Super.
Yeah. So if you think she will also be sort of the right person to talk about M&A strategy, I think she's had sort of a sort of high level view of their sort of move into space. So I guess she could say something about at least the M&A strategy as a part of that
But
business.
maybe you could just check with Simon that he hasn't approached someone else.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think because the in my way into Rheinmetall is Simon's former colleague Manuel.
Mm.
Yeah. So
Okay. Okay.
who's now in
You're
Rheinmetall. So
talking to the same person.
yeah, yeah. So and I've
Good.
kept sort of Simon up to date on sort of the progress. So yeah.
But then we agreed that, well, Atmos could be amazing. I think, first of all, again, as we spoke about last time, that they pitched last year, and it is a portfolio company. And I think it's very, very important to hear from that part of our stakeholders. So it'd be great if they could come. And then the last one I was thinking of was Optics 11, Paul, that you
Yeah,
mentioned.
I've
Yeah.
not heard back from Paul Hayden, so
Okay.
so leave that with me,
Yeah. Okay.
and see whether we can get an interest.
And that could also be a dinner speech.
Yeah, he's a really good speaker. So yeah, so we can get him there, then that would be good. And again, what I'll probably do is dangle the seminar piece because obviously they're looking at surveillance technologies for marine, and that may be of interest for him to be in the seminar. Or come attend the seminar as well as trying to rope him in for Tech Tour. So yeah, I'll try again with him.
Fantastic. So I think we probably shouldn't approach more keynote speakers because there isn't room in the program. But what we can do is if we proceed with the discussion session, there are of course spots in the panel. So should we pursue the working title, The Changing World Order, Where Do Startups Fit In? And the underlying themes were, of course, civil security, European autonomy, old frameworks are outdated, new ones need to be established, all about new partnerships, coalition of the willing, startups need to sell and engage via OEMs and partners. A lot of things on our checklist. But Paul, I'm going to take the freedom and ask if you will moderate again this year. So um,
I mean, I'm happy to, but if someone else wants to take that seat, then that's absolutely fine as well. So I always kind of see myself as a recruiter being plan B rather than plan A. So if someone else wants to take the moderator, I'd be very happy to do it, but I'm very happy for someone else to do it.
I think everyone agrees you're a great moderator.
Okay. Yeah, no, happy to do it. Yeah. Thank you.
Well, I of course think that you, Christian, and Laurit should both be in the panel representing the VC sector. But if we take some of these other themes like civil security, for example, or European autonomy, are there others that we could point at that actually could explain that a little better? The ones from the list that Anders sent?
Someone that may be interesting, I think, is attending is David Ford from Silver Peak, because as an investment bank, they've done multiple fundraisings across the space industry, but also they do M&A as well. So they may, and again, I don't know. I know David well, and I could sound him out, but they may well be seeing the whole primes out to buy, because I think part of what they do is working with the primes to scout potential acquisitions. But I can check in on that and see whether he can bring something to that discussion.
Yeah, I think interesting topic we should discuss is, not how to get things started, because I think, all the investors out there who made this, shift are already aware of this opportunity and the necessity. But what we still need to do, on a European level to succeed is to overcome our fragmentation. And that is true when it comes to, financial regulation for follow-on investments. And that is also true when it comes to exits. Yeah. Because only if we succeed on the follow-on and the exit level, we will have something what we call the spinning wheel. Yeah. And only then, investors will keep on investing in aerospace and defense related topics. And the situation as it's now, from my perspective, is to a certain extent like, okay, as soon as you become too relevant for your national state, you provide critical infrastructure, you will have an issue to raise, money at least outside of Europe, also when it comes to the US. And in certain cases, it will be also very difficult to raise money from European partners as soon as you're doing something for the intelligence community, because that is, the crown jewel, you're dealing then with. And that is something we should also address. And that's something that cannot be addressed, by the VC community. This is something we need to carry to all of our politicians in our national countries to make them aware, okay, we cannot, maintain and sustain, ambitious maritime program or aviation program on national levels any longer. Yeah, this is, outdated, and maybe was never, supposed to survive.
Do you see any steps taken to address this?
Well, every time I speak to our representatives, I can only refer to the German authorities. I try to ensure that this message comes across. But this is, a thing which should be done by everybody here, and also by all the other VC representatives. Because otherwise, we will end up with a load of stranded assets on our national level. That is among my concerns.
Yeah. Laurits, do you know what the situation is in Denmark?
I think I'll just be an echo of what Christian just said. There's a lot of ambition on just investing heavily into it, and not a lot of planning on making it easier for it to be, let's say, the financial community, M&A and whatnot, with everything around it. So I actually very much agree with Christian's take on it, that I'm guessing that's probably across the whole of Europe, that people are very much focused on, we need to invest in this and we need to support the ecosystem. and then not necessarily having big plans on making it a self-sustaining um, system is probably a way to put it, or at least thoughts about it, because there are very much restrictions on it. I know specifically of just looking into all of the different you can say regulation and approvals that you need if you have if you are a foreign investor investing into a company and whatnot, and that's just going to make everything, yeah, slower, more friction. So yeah, very much sort of the same thing. But I actually think that falls into what Paul just said with the Silver Peak, that how are the bigger primes and the bigger players at the moment actually looking into the M&A situation, because that very much gives a view into how the dynamics of the market actually are. And if there's actually any sort of possibilities, are there strategy of just more developing it themselves, or are they actually looking at acquiring things? And if they are looking for acquiring things, how easy is it to get done? Because having an actual ecosystem around it will be important. So any sort of angle in that direction, I think, is quite important, because I would say there's a lot of will and a lot of talking, and I think we're at the part of a lot of doing now. So yeah, I think that's sort of my perspective on it, at least in what I've heard internally here in Denmark, and what we are being told, at least as a, you can say, government-owned
Yeah,
fund.
yeah, that's why, yeah.
Christian, do you have any access to Helsing? Because Helsing seem to be defying everything in terms of the norm, in terms of the money they're raising globally from mainstream VCs, from sovereign wealth funds, and their valuation is something crazy now, like an AI company. But they're basically doing blow it up stuff, aren't they? So I don't know whether someone from Helsing maybe an interesting perspective on someone that's broken through in terms of sovereignty, going global investment raising, etc.
Well, through several, corners, I would have maybe a chance to approach them. Yeah. Um, I don't know whether this is, the right way to go. Yeah. Because I think Helsing is, very special, and I don't know to which extent it can serve us as a role model for all the others. They started really with a huge amount of money, and that was a very special situation. And yeah, they can easily soak up the air, in a room.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
fair
the
enough.
question is how much is then left, for all the other participants, you
Mm.
know, question mark.
Fine. No, let's drop it then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're saying the right thing there. So, I mean, interestingly, and again, it's a bit of a sideline, but what ISI have done, because we're doing a lot of work with them at the moment, particularly on the sales side, is they're either selling satellites directly. So the Netherlands, Portugal have just bought satellites off them, but in other places like Japan, and the Middle East, they're signing and creating joint ventures so that there are local nationals hired into an entity to do the final assembly, integration, and test of the satellites before they're launched. So the country partner can slap its flag on the side of the satellite, and it just has in little letters powered by ISI, which is a really interesting way of stepping around and I suppose ticking the sovereignty and security box that countries want in having said we've built and launched satellites. And the Middle East don't even mention G42 or Space 42 aren't even mentioning ISI. They're just talking about launching their SAR satellites. But again, that's
Yeah.
just a sideline of how
Yeah.
companies are having to be very clever to cross border.
Yeah, but this is not really a new idea. I think it creates a win-win situation, for both the country and the company. Yeah.
Mm.
But this is a model which has been, practiced for several years, decades. Airbus was doing it, the Chinese government was doing that, and it makes perfectly sense, from the buyer's country's perspective. If you want to bring your workforce to the next educational level, that's the way to go. Yeah. And yeah, it's not just buying it and establishing a ground station. If you have a chance to establish a production facility in your premises, I think it's really good. Way to go.
But I guess we're looking for someone who represents that other side to sit in the panel if we're going to pursue that discussion. Could it be the Norwegian Intelligence Service? Are they're a speaker at the seminar?
Yeah, I mean, coming back to my previous remarks, an interesting approach could be to discuss an edge case. For instance, what if the a company pops up in Norway, which is of high relevance for the Norwegian forces, and they want to grow, they need to grow, they need to raise more money, but then the Norwegian authorities are then concerned to to let them grow, yeah, and to raise maybe money, I don't know, from Saudi Arabia, I don't know, from countries all over the world. Yeah, I'm making up something here. So the question is, how would they react? Are you then damned to stay small because it became too relevant, or how would they behave? I mean, that could create a very uncomfortable situation for any representative on stage. But maybe that's something what could be discussed, or we could discuss ahead of such a panel because these
With
are
the
really the
panelists,
important
we could
points.
invite the panelists.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
and this is not a theoretical problem. We had such a problem in our HTGF portfolio in the past.
Okay.
So this is not theory. This is practice.
Yeah. Could that case be just fictive, but you don't have to use the right names, but you could use that case.
Yeah.
It's easy. Yeah.
And I mean, it's we can also come up with a theoretical country. Yeah, that's what we
Exactly.
did in
Country
the Cold
XX
War.
company.
There
Yeah,
was A land,
exactly.
B land. There were the reds and the blues. That's the way do you do it. Yeah.
Yeah. And country XX. Yeah.
Just a quick comment on that. I read
Marius, we hear you. Your sound is very low.
Okay, give me a sec.
Okay, we'll get. But Paul,
Sorry about that.
there you
I
go.
think it's
Much
something
better.
with my hat.
Much better.
Yeah, okay, great. So I was just thinking, is just a quick thought. I read the newsletter from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the United States yesterday, and it said that the US has like a huge interest in the Middle East because of their energy infrastructure, and they're considering establishing AI infrastructure in the Middle East, and that's why it's kind of very interested in having some sort of control in that region. And so what we see like in small scale in Norway is also that energy is kind of a deciding factor where to put AI facilities and stuff like that. So is it possible that maybe there's some examples of where AI companies are establishing AI facilities and data centers and stuff, which can be in regions which is outside of Europe, but still something like that? Or is that too far-fetched?
Yeah, I mean, can step in here. I don't know how you discuss these topics these days in Norway, but the way we discuss it publicly in Germany is, I mean, there's no way to decouple the German society or the industry from the rest of the world. but we need to make it more resilient. And the way to do it is, to onshore things and to bring, data centers in particular home. I mean, you guys have an unfair advantage. You have a lot of clean energy if you want, which was, used in the past to run, with Bitcoin mines, etc. But this could also be utilized for AI centers, in a clean way. Yeah. And if I would ask, these days politicians, German authorities, how would they think of, setting up AI plants somewhere in the Middle East? I think that would receive a lukewarm reception. I mean, so the opposite is true if it's somewhere here in Europe, yeah, maybe Norway also with clean energy, that would make it
Much
way
more
more
sense.
better. So, yeah.
But maybe I think I always like cases because it becomes so concrete.
Mm.
So this case, maybe we could build a discussion session around that. Could you maybe in the minutes or add a few words to that case, the key elements in it, Christian?
Yeah. I could write down a few challenges which I see.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would
And
be
this
amazing.
could be, our starting point to
Yeah.
spin off, a kind of red line for
Yeah.
panel discussion.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then we could,
One question I have here is very much that I would say Christian and I sort of both represent, you can say, I would guess, a bit of the startup perspective of being investing in smaller companies and being on that journey. But for the discussion to sort of make sense, at least from my perspective of talking about the challenges of making an ecosystem work,
hmm,
it's very much having someone in that's, I would say, an expert or either a part of the ecosystem at the higher level, either that being a prime or someone advising the bigger players, or let's say even someone with some sort of legislation perspective on this
exactly.
aspect for there to be some sort of it's not just being me and Christian being super sad
No,
that
no,
there's
no,
not
we need
someone to
more.
buy our companies, but more in getting, you can say, both perspectives and more constructive in what sort of things and places is there actually a chance for, let's say, the companies or Christian and I to get an understanding on where you could push or where you can't, or where there's actually some levers that are able that there's able to be pulled based on those sort of challenges, at that being the base. I don't know, that was just sort of my thoughts for it to um, actually have more depth and more diverse perspectives on.
Yeah, and we should always have,
Yeah.
the different stakeholders represented and give their version of it. But Silver Peak, of course, is a capital fund, right?
Yeah, so they're doing the
Yeah,
fundraising. They're also doing M&A as
yeah,
well. So, and I'll talk to David and see what
yeah.
track record they got in both and whether he feels he could give that kind of big picture view.
Mhm.
But
Marius?
Yeah, I
but
just realized that we have a company called Havgard, which is
yeah,
seabed to space telecom. You probably met
yeah.
Emilia. And isn't that kind of a bit like the case? Because she has trouble raising capital because it's such a secret technology and she can't
Ah,
be
yeah,
open
yeah,
with it.
yeah.
Yeah, so she
Okay,
can't be open with it.
cool.
She can't present that to VCs like the way she would like to. So
Yeah.
she's prohibited by, I don't know if it's Norwegian governments or something like that, but she can't do that. So she had to be always kind of implicit and a bit indirect when she presents, and it's hard to get grasp of what she's actually doing. But yeah, so I think that could be and
That's a
she's
good
really
point.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah, and she's really good on
That's a
stage as
very good
well.
point. That's a very
a
good
good
point. I think we
case.
have two, I would say, defense portfolio companies where they are literally having to dancing around and sort of not explaining what they're doing, but sort of still doing it, and then saying you could probably use it this way, and there's a high
Yeah.
chance that someone might use it this way. But you could also do this and that because they can't say specifically what their clients or their customers are using it for, because then you would, yeah, let's
So it
say
really
build
requires that
incentives.
the other partner has imagination.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
and
Yeah.
that's at least very difficult because if they ended up saying anything, they would lose their customers, or they would end up
Yeah.
disclosing something where
Yeah.
if your primary customer is a, let's say, a military force in any sort of country, then yeah, then we are not comfortable with buying it because we believe that everybody now knows this sort of secret. Um,
Have they
and
got
that's
round it? Have they solved this?
Um,
the company that I'm talking about, or the one Marius was.
Oh, is it how God we're still talking about?
Yeah,
Marius, have
I was
they?
talking about another company, but
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it's sort of the
But
same.
have any of these with security issues raised money?
uh,
Um,
sorry, Lotus, just go on.
in our case, yes, they've raised, I would say, some money and are now still now going out and fundraising again. And they are, I know at least one of the biggest topics is how can they present it, let's say, truthfully, what they're doing and what it
Yeah.
can, what you can use it for, without saying too much about what they're actually doing and their specific customers. If I remember correctly, they've gone from in the last 12 months, or maybe it's 9 months, from like zero revenue to 2 million euros in ARR out of just landing two big customers. But explaining what those two customers are using it for and the specific things they can just can't. Um, so yeah,
But is there a solution to this problem?
Um,
that is sort of the question that is probably great to have a good discussion about, because
Yeah.
Yeah, to a
maybe there's
certain
not.
extent, we should also think of, okay, how can we find an easy way to give some investors in Europe access to clearances which work cross-border.
Yeah.
I suppose one of the things we've got to be careful of is we don't just give people the bad news.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That we
Yeah.
actually are able to convey some good news or a way forward, that because there's two things here. One is we don't want startups going down dead ends because they don't even think about these things. But
Mm.
equally, we don't want everyone walking out the room saying we're never going to raise money, let's close down, and trying to give some kind of path forward. And maybe David Ford from Silver Peak has a view on that. And again, I can ask him on that in terms of how they help their clients navigate, and if they are helping them navigate through this as well. Um,
Well, there must be an interest in both the investor side and the startup side to solve this, obviously, because there are great investment opportunities.
hmm,
So it could be interesting to see what considerations different people have done on this to solve it.
yeah. So are we clear who's going to be on the panel at
Well,
this
we
stage?
agreed that you will moderate, then Lawitz and Christian will represent the VCs.
Hmm.
Then we were considering how Guard as the company who has the security issues, right?
Hmm.
Marius. And then I'm sitting here looking at Anders' list from this morning. If there must be someone there that is also involved in this.
We could really work the Rheinmetall guy over and just get him doing everything, because they're kind of, it would be great to have a prime, albeit there's other primes that are going to be at the event, sorry, at the seminar. But maybe as a sideline daughter, you could reach out to Anders and say it would be great to have a prime on the panel. If this is the makeup of the panel, the bit missing is the prime, and maybe
Prime,
that's
but what do you mean
Rheinmetall.
by the prime?
Oh, so one of the major players that
Okay.
so there's Northrop Grumman there. There's
Kongsberg.
Rheinmetall. Yeah, exactly. So
There's lots to choose from.
well, there is,
Yeah.
but maybe Anders has got a view of who would be
Yeah.
best placed to
Yeah.
be, and might be open and interested to give that view. And again, without labouring Rheinmetall, just because of what they've done with ISI, which is really a startup scale up. that's a really good template maybe to, to what their future strategies, and they can give a view of why, why ISI.
Yeah.
Does everyone agree with that, just in terms of panel mix?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And I think we see it, or we will see it more often, this team up between, startups and established companies. And that's exactly what we need to do. I mean, we need to pair best of both worlds of industrial
Yeah.
production capacities, capabilities, and
Yeah.
this innovative approach from the startups. And quite often it's a clash of cultures, and the main challenge is how to make it work. And if they could give us, some insights on, okay, how do they, deal with each other, and how do they assure that they will succeed, that would be also very insightful for us and the rest of the community.
Yeah, because it's interesting. Again, if I can get Paul Hayden for Optics
Yeah.
11, their sensing technology, they cut a deal with the Dutch submarine corps, but
Mm.
they had to deliver it through Thales as the prime. So they were the gatekeeper and they were the integrator, because they weren't going to stick all this technology in all of their submarines and then Optics 11 goes bust the next day. So they had to be working with a prime to actually
Yeah.
deliver and support the technology long term. And Thales obviously were the partner that they've joined up with on that.
Mm.
So again, it's not exactly space, but it's very representative of how you need to work in
I
the defense sector.
Yeah, in the defense sector, but I would also argue in any sort of sense, another way instead of partnering up with one of the big companies or established companies is also consolidation. Is probably a thing that you're going to see throughout the whole
Yeah.
both space, but also
Yeah.
defense part of it, because I would say all of the sort of capital and all of the things that are going in, and that may be a solution to the thing that Christian was talking about of having the full ecosystem, is that you will probably see more of the companies merging together and getting a bit bigger so they actually can serve, let's say, either the defense part of it, but also, let's say, just the countries in general, if they want to have either is sending up satellites, but also having a clear deliver you can say a solid supply that can deliver whatever technology that you're delivering. That's sort of still also within that space, I would guess, because if you become big enough, they would not be as worried about it. But yeah, that's just another perspective I think that you could throw in, at least in that sort of discussion as well.
Just conscious of time, maybe it would be a good to, if we can circulate who the panel's going to be, where the gap is, but if we can maybe capture people's thoughts in terms of the themes, and then we can distill that down to the agenda for the panel. Because I think the main thing is we don't want to be overwhelmed with themes and things to talk about and not just get through the list, but because there's just so many moving parts here, I think it's going to be really, really interesting. But we just need to, and again, daughter, if I remember, it's only something like half an hour or 40 minutes, was it?
No, an hour.
It's an hour. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
well, I think, to be honest, I think because there are so many moving parts, let's give
Yeah.
it the hour as well. So, okay.
But
Um,
I think that it's all that's why if we have that case to work up with as the point of beginning, then we can control the session.
hmm,
And then and I think we're missing a prime.
hmm.
And maybe and if we can get Haugard or the company you were referring to, Lauritz.
The company that I was talking about is Pure Defense. It's an AI company just doing defense
But
things.
that doesn't matter. The problem is still the same. The issue is still the same for them, that
Mhm.
they cannot speak openly about what they do.
I can definitely ask and see if it's if they're willing and want to join.
Will you
So
be able to say anything?
They've actually done some public speaking,
Okay.
and the CEO and founder and Julie is very good on the scene and very good at pitching. So
Yeah.
I think people would like having her on, and also discussion part very much. But yeah, I can definitely ask, and they can say some of the things that they would like to do and what they're doing.
Yeah,
But
but I think that's
yeah.
not necessary. I think exactly their role would be to say, how do they get around this hurdle? Or they would like to hear others say how they would recommend they get around this hurdle. And I actually think if you also ask Haukat, and we have two companies that it's all about, it makes a lot of sense.
Mm.
Yeah, I can definitely ask and see if they're willing to join.
Sorry, I'm going to have to go in a couple of
Yeah,
minutes. Just a
I
couple of
will
quick.
do my best to create minutes, and I suggest that once we have that the confirmations,
Mm.
we call the panel together.
Yeah, happy to do that.
Exactly.
Have we managed to expand the selection panel, and also
Yes,
what's the?
we're still really chasing companies, but the selection panel, I think we're 39.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah,
If
right?
you
Yeah.
want, I can give you the status update.
That would be good. Yeah.
Quickly,
Yeah.
people have to leave. Yeah.
We have 32 confirmed selection panel members plus 6 advisory board members, so 38 in total selection panel members. And we received some additional companies applications, so now we have 24. The application process will be extended, but still the selection process will be opened on 27th, so people will be able to start reviewing the received applications as soon as possible. And yeah, we will send some reminders and updates to the companies. In total, we have already received 100 nominations, so we will chase the companies that were nominated.
Cool. And daughter, how many companies can we fit in to the
35.
agenda? 35. Okay.
35, 37, about there. Yeah.
Okay.
Because otherwise it'll extend into the evening.
Well,
But
we can't get home, so there's no
no,
reason we
that's true.
can't.
Okay, we can extend.
No, I mean, but seriously, I mean,
But honestly, yeah.
we don't need to cut. Again, I don't know about everyone else's logistics, but you know, to accepting the fact most people were flying out on the Saturday morning, apart from
Absolutely.
the locals, then why not? And there's no reason there can't maybe, you know, we're doing the Thursday night, maybe there could be something arranged for the Friday night, just an informal, whoever's, you know, the left in Bodo night on
Yeah,
Friday evening.
Oh, I absolutely agree. And if we do extend that's an interesting thought, Paul, then we could have a keynote in the middle of the day as well.
Yeah. Well,
So,
I'm going to have to go, but maybe I'll just leave that thought
we
with you
will work
because,
on that.
yeah,
Good
because
idea.
I just remember last time, you know, I think we ended up with the tech tour team, you know, going out for dinners. Everyone was wandering the streets of Bodor on the Friday night. So,
So let's absolutely do that.
yeah, cool.
Absolutely.
All right. Before we I have one question, Dorte. Maybe I missed it in the beginning. How should we proceed with registration process for the Arctic Space Week? Last time it was mentioned that, you know, the board advisors don't need to register
No,
for
for the
apart from the
seminar,
flight.
you have to pay Andoya yourself, but the seminar you don't have to pay. The advisory
Okay.
board.
And the networking dinner, that's also something we pay on our
That
own.
is always included.
Okay,
So
that
there's
is
no
always
paying
included.
there. Yeah, it's
Okay.
only the seminar. It's only Andoya.
Yeah, because I don't know whether I will go to Andoya this time due
No,
to
you
my
went last
schedule,
time. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that's nothing, and they will have my name on it tag. Okay, good.
Brilliant. I'm going to have to
Thanks.
go, guys. Thanks for the great discussion.
Fantastic. Thank you again.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye-bye now.
Take care.
Daughter,
Yeah.
just when I have you, it's just me. I actually tried before the meeting trying to find an email over just sort of all of the registration part and where we had to pay for the things. I'm also in Christian's camp of not thinking about if I'm going to Andoya again or not. Maybe also with the scheduling thing. But it was just I couldn't find an overview where I would had to sign up myself for the different sort of things. Maybe you could send that out to me again, or maybe
Yes,
it's not been sent out yet,
absolutely.
and it's just that.
Yeah, absolutely. Wait a second.
It's also because I probably also have a colleague this year that would have probably also like to join as well.
Super.
So we are having more from IFO. At least I'm trying to do it because he has been a part of the space thing and also a part of the defense effort that we have from our side. And it's actually been a bit deeper than I am in the defense part. I can also say the company that I spoke about before, he's the one that invested in that we are trying to get on board. So that would probably
Who
also
is that? Who is it?
It's Simon. Simon
Okay.
Bylund.
Yeah.
So I'm at least trying to
Super.
lobbying him to join at least. So
Yeah.
we have more from our side, but yeah, it's just having a full overview because I tried to look through all the emails and
Yeah, I
couldn't find
know.
it.
I know. It's nice when you say this is what I need. That's what you get. And
Yeah.
again, you don't have to pay for the seminar. Simon would probably have to, but because it's an offer to the advisory board. But it's 400 euros. It's not a fortune.
I'm pretty sure we would have the budget for it, so that's not the problem, at least with the sort of traveling. But yeah, I was just having an overview also for him because I can say we've probably also been a part of the process at least a bit earlier, but he's been on paternity leave since February.
Okay.
So I'm just trying to get a loop, and I
Yeah.
just couldn't find anything saying this is the tech tour. This is all of the things with the Arctic Week, and this is sort of the commitments and whatnot of being a part of it. Just so I can make my job a bit more easier, saying this
Yeah,
is
no worries.
the event of the year. You should join, and actually more also having the argumentation at home because coming home from paternity leaves, there are small kids at home, and
Yes,
leaving for some
exactly.
weekdays is
Exactly. Yeah,
that's a
exactly.
negotiation I've heard.
Yes. You need
But
some
yeah,
good arguments.
at least some, not just that I want to leave and go to the northern part of or go to the northern part of Scandinavia. But yeah,
I
that was
think
it.
it's a great idea you come to because there's so many people that are relevant for you to meet, and for one person to manage that can be difficult to go all the way around.
Yeah, exactly. And I know that at least last year, when we were looking at some of the funds that ended up joining and also being of the panel debate, have actually invested in some of the companies that he's also been a part of. So
Yeah.
I would say that it makes sense for him to join, at least if we still have the same level of other investors joining.
No,
But
I
yeah.
imagine we do. I don't think the interest is less this year than it was last year.
Yeah, that's all.
Yeah.
That's the same sort of feeling that I also have. But yeah, that was it. But yeah, thank you
Thank
again,
you,
and
Lauritz. Tell
talk
him
to you guys.
hi, and I'll get the link from Charlotte.
Super.
Take
Talk to
care.
you. Bye.
Bye. Oh God.